and bow ties. So look, I don't think people should be accepting advice from people who've never been in that situation. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Where am I going with this? It's just so odd to me that I'm gonna just come at the women for a second. I love my black women, but y'all be bugging sometimes. Black women will tell other black women what it's like to have children and why they shouldn't have any when they've never had any. You've got a lot of people out here now trying to tell black people about what it's like to have children. I'm like, well, did you ever have any? So how do you know what it's like? A lot of times people will be like, well, I played the auntie. I'm like, no, that's not the same. It is not. I want to make it clear. You being somebody's auntie or extended auntie for a period of time does not mean you know what it's like to have children. I'm talking about birthing. I'm talking about being responsible for the full on care day in and day out. And it's not just monetarily, it's the confidant, it's the provider, it's the emotional support, it's the runner or rounder, the carpool. It's everything. It's the nurse you back to health person. It's all of that. I think what happens is people will see other people that they have proximity to who may be in a situation where it's not palatable. So then they tell you, you shouldn't have children because that's their choice. Now, let me just say this. Having children is one of the most complicated things you can do because there is a reward, but there also is a lot of work. There is a lot of emotional investment. It's expensive, especially if you're trying to do it right. Okay? And so, if people are telling you, I don't think women should be convincing women to have kids or not to have kids. I think the only thing they should be doing is telling women, hey, this is the choice I'm making for myself. But I find it interesting that you have women who've never had any children want to tell people not to have children. And not only that, what's interesting is a lot of these women who have been through these horrible relationships because they were involved in these bad relationships. Now they want to put their negative spin and everything on everything. And I'm just kind of like, if you haven't seen a good situation, why would you tell someone else not to engage in certain things? Now, if you're saying don't have children and become a single mom, I can understand that. But to say you shouldn't have children or don't have kids, I know there is this trend right now where there's women who are not interested in having kids. I'm okay with that too. I'm actually okay with that. What I don't think should be happening is women sitting there giving out advice on whether or not you should or should not have children when they've never experienced it. They don't know what motherhood is like. You don't know how that's going to change people. Let me tell you, I'm not saying this is the story for everyone, but I never thought I would have 4 children. I barely thought I was going to have one. It's like, because I valued my time, my space, my freedom, all that good stuff. Now, let me tell you, I would not trade my children in for the world, but I would also tell you that it has been difficult at times. It's difficult. I've shed tears with them. I'm like, I don't know what your problem is. Like there are times when you're like, why can't you just get yourself together? Because I'm investing so much in you in every way. You're going to go through ups and downs. But people who've never had children, and especially men, I do know men who like to chime in about how to raise children and they've never raised a child. I'm like, you can take a healthy dose of shut the F up. You've never raised one. Well, I would. I'm like, you don't know what you would do because every child is different. You don't know what you would do. I'm like, shut up. Until you are in these situations, it's kind of like if a child has a woman. Now, my children don't typically talk back to me. But every once in a blue moon, somebody might want to snap off. Well, it's not even that often. And sometimes I pause. I'm like, well, what's causing that? So I remind them who they're talking to. But then I get to the root. I'm like, what's really going on? Now, my kids don't typically do that because there is a little bit of a healthy dose of fear. And people like their kids shouldn't fear you. I'm like, yes, they should. I'm like, because there's a reason why half of these kids are out here wilding out because they have no fear of anything or consequences. But I digress. When people say what they wouldn't do, I'm like, stop taking advice from these weirdos because they haven't been in that situation. They don't know the full story of the kind of person that you're dealing with. Now, I'm not saying I'm going through anything, but it's just for example. So I'm just kind of like, shut up. I'm going to move on to the other topic. I hear a lot of women talk about marriage. There's all kinds of posts and people, and they talk about marriage, and I just kind of feel like you've never been married, so how can you talk about marriage? And if your proximity to marriage was always unhealthy once, I can understand why you wouldn't want to get married, but I wouldn't be sharing that with other people. I mean, data shows that people who are married tend to increase their wealth and all kinds of stuff. And I'm not saying that's the only reason why you get married. But, when I find people, you got single women are going to other single women for advice on marriage and relationships. And I'm like, uh, what about them? It's like going to Steve Harvey and asking, how do you have a successful marriage? Isn't he like on his third marriage? And they say that one is suspect. I don't know. I'm not in their marriage. I just feel the whole situation is just so weird. It's all the way weird. So I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you because, you know, people just want to just talk, and I just feel like people need to just stop talking to people who've never been in those situations. If you've never been in that situation, stop giving out that kind of advice. It's silly. I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of people are just so hurt and they talk about how they don't want to be married. I'm like, you're full of crap. Yes, you do. Because that's what you talk about all the time is marriage and kids. You talk about it all the time. I think you protest too much. Now, I will say this. I've been in the valley in my marriage and I've been at the mountaintop. So in any relationship, you're going to experience peaks and valleys. Everybody has their boundaries, right? Or how low they're willing to go. But I would say that as with any relationship, you got to put in some work. And you need to have boundaries, and it's tough to discern every possible thing, but you got to find a way to, well, find a way. You have to have boundaries for yourself, and then you got to make sure that when you're meeting people that they're not crossing those boundaries, or at least set a firm line so they know that, hey, you've crossed the boundary, you can never do this again. And it also depends on the offense. So I will say this: people need to stop talking to people who have no experience on what this type of life or whatever it is that they're trying to be in. I'm just like, shut up. I feel like especially black women are going to listen to all these women on these podcasts in their full-on angry self talk about everything. I'm like, is this the person that you're using for an example? You have to learn how to take the good and toss the rest of the information. You do. I wish you guys could see what is in front of me. It looks like a weird movie right now with the way the sky looks and the overcast and the fog and the trees. And it looks like it looks crazy right now. So this backdrop or front drop or whatever you want to call it looks crazy. But anyway, that's pretty much it. The comment section is below. Go ahead and let me know what you think about that. That's probably not. This isn't the most riveting conversation, but it is what it is. You need to stop talking to people who don't know what they're talking about, especially single women going to single women asking them about marriage. How ridiculous is that? Stop. I'm not saying get married. I'm not saying not get married. But the data does show when people get married and they're together also that their wealth tends to go up. At least I know I read that a long time ago. It may have changed. I don't know. It was a while back. Getting together pooling resources and working together. Working together. I don't care who you marry, as long as you got them. All right, that's pretty much it. I'm going to get my life together and get off now.